the work that we do will help you have more pleasure. It'll help you open up. It'll help you remove some of those blocks and limitations and limiting beliefs. But what you're really doing in this work is stepping into your identity.
I'm Rachel, and you're listening to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast.
All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast. Happy 2024. This will be one of the earlier episodes of the show, so I'm excited. I have Jessica Al-Faqih on the show with us today, all the way from California. Super jealous. It's very, very cold here in right now. Immediately when Jessica messaged me to be on the show, I was like, yes, I would love to have you. We're talking sex and psychedelics, like two of my favorite things to talk about. And Jessica, you have some experience in this. So you're a psychedelic sensual empowerment coach. I love that. Again, the sensual word and the somatic side of it and all of that. So you help women specifically clear blocks around their sensuality, built up from past experiences, cultural conditioning, limiting beliefs, behaviors, all things I talk about with clients on a daily basis. So you, people like you, we need so much of you in the world. And yeah, you're helping them access more pleasure, more connection, more power within themselves. So I'm really excited to see where this conversation takes us.
Yay. Thank you. I'm really excited as well.
Yes. So how did you even become about this? Like how did you make this your profession?
That is a good question, because when I tell people I'm a psychedelic sensual empowerment coach, there's always like a pause and a double take.
Yeah.
Wait, what? I actually, three things I think needed to happen. I was in a period of dark night of the soul, searching for what my purpose was. I was working in digital marketing before, and it was not fulfilling, satisfying. I had my master's certification already in neurolinguistic programming, but I just wasn't using it in any capacity. Like I was using it on myself only. And I just spent, I think it was like 3 years. This was not a quick realization, searching for my thing. And it wasn't until I had a psychedelic experience that started to, I kind of say that the universe was knocking me around like a game of pinball.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was just like, I tried teaching college composition. I tried going all in on the digital marketing thing, and like nothing was my secret sauce until I had this psychedelic experience that was, we were having sex on psychedelics. And I was shown like a vision of this old school, but it was empty. I was like, what is going on? And I was starting to cultivate all of this sexual power from the experience and didn't know how to direct it, didn't know what to do with it. I felt like a child who just stumbled upon like daddy's thunder spear on Mount Olympus and didn't know what to do with it. And that sat for another period of time until I was in another sexual experience where I was having sex with my partner. And I just said, I wish I could do this for a living. And I didn't mean having sex for money. I didn't know what I meant, but I was just feeling so into my power in that moment and feeling so authentically myself. And I was like, this is what I need to do. And the very next morning, I got an advertisement for a sex coaching school.
Wow.
I said, okay. I just finished grad school. It's like, I'm never going back to school. This is it. And I immediately signed up.
Okay, universe, I see you.
Totally.
But you said yes to it, which is the important part. So often we'll receive messages like that, and then we don't know, and so how did you know? Do you have, what is your internal compass that told you like, yes, this is the thing?
Having come off of a really grueling grad school experience, because I was doing that during the pandemic. And when I saw, here is the investment, here's the time commitment, it's school, it's grad school again. And everything in my body said, I'm totally down.
Mhm.
And so, just that inner sense of knowing, and that it was a leap of faith, to say there were times when I was going through the program where I was like, ooh, is this it?
Mhm.
And now that I'm in my practice, I've never felt more aligned. I've never felt more, this is my thing,
Mhm.
with unequivocal, just yesness.
Mhm.
But it is, you do have to sit with some of the hesitations and the fears, because if it's not your thing,
Yeah.
that's scary. If it is your thing, that can also be scary. It's a full commitment.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can relate a lot to a lot to that what you're saying, and yeah, feeling scared doing it anyways, but definitely you said something, and now I'm thinking back to one of my previous mushroom trips, and now I'm thinking I'm like I need to go to the rainforest. Like something is telling me I need to go to the rainforest. Yeah, a lot of my visions, I'm like a little lizard on a like just me and my husband are little lizards or little like monkeys, and we're like doing things. I'm like, these are all rainforest things. I think this
Yeah.
I'm onto something here. So um, anyway, so when you say psychedelics, tell us what falls into the realm of that for you and your work that you do.
Yeah. So the work that I do primarily utilizes psilocybin. But there's psychedelics like ayahuasca, which maybe you're talking about going into the jungle for. You've got DMT, LSD, mescaline. There's the traditional realm of psychedelics, which are medicines that you can use to expand consciousness. So it'll alter your state of consciousness in an expansive way. There are practices that I also lead that simulate psychedelics. So I don't necessarily need to work with psychedelics with my clients. We do a lot of somatic based, visualization based, meditation based, hypnosis based practices that kind of guide you into that psychedelic state.
Mm-hmm.
Because what psychedelics are doing is they're quieting and shutting down a lot of the processes in our brain that are creating those blocks, that are creating the limitations, that are creating the stories and beliefs that we have about ourselves. So when a client comes to me wanting to feel more pleasure and they're blocked by shame from their past, maybe they were bullied about their body. And so they're having a lot of difficulty sinking into their body, tuning into that self-love. The brain is creating and reminding them of all those stories. So it's saying, hey, you can't be fully relaxed in this situation because in your past, kids bullied you and made fun of your body, and you need to hide that. You need to protect that. Even if it's not a conscious thought, you have these subconscious references coming up. And so psychedelics can quiet the default mode network, which is one of those referral systems, and offer new connectivity to different systems in the brain. So you can experience self-love, you can experience connection in a completely different way because your brain is literally acting in a different way. It's wiring differently. And so I work with my clients to rewire their brain and their body. So it's a two-way system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate the gift that psychedelics give us. And then I also appreciate the wisdom that psychedelics give us to be able to do these practices, even when you can't access psychedelics, if you're not a good candidate for psychedelics.
Yeah. Yeah. Like breath work for me, breath work, I feel like a high, I'm using air quotes, like a high effect a lot of times with that. Especially if it's like a deep, longer experience of a thing like a guided thing I'm going through. Even with eye gazing, like eye gazing with my partner for a long period of time, I'm like, holy shit, like what is happening? So I appreciate that you do this because yeah, some people, they'll hear psychedelics and they kind of, turn away, shy away from it. It's scary for a lot of people. I was that person, early 2021 before I got into psychedelics. But yeah, so I like that you offer this. And so when you're working with people, this isn't, I'm going to assume, but tell me if I'm wrong. This isn't, they come to see you one time and all is well. This sounds like it's a process that you take people through.
Yeah, I create a container. So it's a 13 session container, and that's over like 6 to 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason being, we can clear so much in one session.
Mm-hmm.
You can condense like years of traditional therapy into very, very short period of healing. But what tends to happen is the nervous system is wired for homeostasis. So even if you make a radical change, and I'm sure maybe you've experienced this, I know other people who've done medicine work have experienced, you can go out and have an epiphany. You can go out and have this like major release of past trauma. But when you go back to your day-to-day life, the familiar old pattern starts to creep back in. You start to do the same habits, feel the same feelings. And so this work is really all about, again, rewiring the mind-body connection, rewiring the nervous system, retraining your body to feel, to do different. And that takes time because your nervous system's always battling itself, trying to bring it back to homeostasis where it's been comfortable the longest. Doesn't mean it's healthy, doesn't mean it's happy, doesn't mean it's a good space for you to be in. It's just the space that feels most familiar, and familiar equals safety and comfort because you haven't died yet. Essentially, we're wired for survival. So it's like if nothing insane has happened, we can even be conditioned into trauma. But it does take time and consistency to move out of that. And the other reason why I create a long container is because once you do all that clearing, your expansiveness and your possibilities open up. And so I want to say, okay, I'm not just going to drop you off. I'm not just going to leave you here in the middle of nowhere where all these signposts are saying, you could go here, you could go here, you could go here. It's like, let's really start to look at what these new expanded possibilities are. Where do you want to take that for your pleasure, for your relationship, for yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. And how would you say, so for the somatic side of it, how, in your words, like how do somatics and sex intertwine with one another?
That's a really good question. I could go like so many different directions. One of the primary ways, and this is why I like to say that I'm a sensual empowerment coach, not a sexual empowerment coach, is because somatics offer us a way to tune more deeply into the sensations in our body and to engage with the sensory experience outside. And so when we're looking at somatics, we're doing things like breath work, we're doing things like visualization that anchor emotional states into the body. And so a lot of, the blocks that we have around pleasure, around feeling into what our body's offering us, our body's wisdom, our body's capacities, that gets blocked by stuff in the brain. It also gets blocked because different emotions come up to trigger those memories and those feelings in the brain. And so I don't think you can work on them one alone from the other. It's a connected system. And so I do a lot of work with emotional conditioning, which I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but that is priming your body to feel into the emotional states that you want more of. We're so practiced in feeling, I'm going to use myself as an example, stress, overwhelm, anxiety, fear. These feeling states are really easy to go into. If you have any sense of like what your emotional map is, it's that feeling that you experience more often than not. And so you've got a recipe for what it feels like to feel that feeling. You know how to get there. I know what I need to think about to feel stressed. I know what I need to start doing with my body. I need to be a little bit frantic. And so somatics offer us a way to give our body a calming, like a soothing experience. And then we can further use somatics to reprogram our nervous system to not just go into, okay, I'm feeling stressed, I know how to do breath work or meditation to calm myself. I'm also going to anchor in an empowered state. So instead of stressed, I want to feel confident. And I'm going to pair those two together so that now when I go into a stress response, I know how to deactivate that through somatic work. And then I can pull up this feeling and this experience of confidence and let that sink into my body and coach my body to feel these feelings that it's less used to experiencing. Because if you just go out in your day-to-day life waiting to feel confident, good luck. But if you sit down for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, and just prime yourself to feel confidence, you're going to be able to access that emotion a lot more quickly, a lot more readily, and under a stressful situation.
Yeah. And this reminds me a lot. I'd like to do embodiment work with people. And so using like through sound and movement and music and things like that, and to be able to embody a state, embody an emotion, or embody, I like to work with the feminine archetypes a lot. But, like that can take somebody. When I run calls with women, we get on the call and I've seen people just be like, oh, I'm not really feeling it today. And it's like, we turn on the sound, I guide them through the movements and stuff. And it's like, they come back a different woman, essentially, like sitting in front of me, I'm like, yeah, that's the power of getting in your body and like getting actually in tune with yourself. No matter like how silly it feels or how hard it feels or whatever other emotion might be coming up, like, yeah, I think there's so much power in us accessing our body and like going more internal. And so, as you said, we're just like conditioned to push things out and to just be like, I'm fine, everything's fine, whatever. But I think when what you resist persists. So if you actually go deep and take the time with yourself, like you're saying, spend that 10 minutes, hour, whatever it is that you need to go within. And that's why I like psychedelics, because as you're saying, for me, and I've only experimented with psilocybin as well, but ayahuasca is definitely on my to-do list here soon. But that for me, it's like, it is the brain shut off. It is the shut off of the conscious mind, or the racing, like day-to-day thoughts or day-to-day stress. And like I shared, it's like some random shit that comes to the surface, right? Like me as a lizard or whatnot. But yeah, I've definitely also had, it is helped me just purge emotions, cry without having a reason of crying, just because like that is what my body needed in that moment. It has helped me have more in-depth conversations with my husband. It has helped us have some phenomenal fucking sex on psychedelics, of course. And yeah, so there's just so many benefits when you can shut down that part of that processes, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, even for people who are caught up in their mind, for people who feel a little bit blocked tuning into their body, dropping into their body, we're still all being influenced by our emotions. Mm-hmm. Like science has shown that 100% of our decisions, 100% are driven by emotions. Mm-hmm. And so when you're not in tune with your emotions, when you're not feeling them, they're still running the show. Mm-hmm. And so there's a huge personal power that comes from being able to tap into your emotional states, and then also being able to control those emotional states, to not let the lizard brain, it's funny, it's a lizard, but to not let the lizard brain control you, and to have some more power and agency over that. And that's one of the biggest gifts that I feel like I can give, especially to women, when so much of our agency has been taken away from us culturally and historically. Is to reclaim that power through being able to use your emotions as personal power.
Yeah. And I like that you said, sensual empowerment, not sexual empowerment. And I appreciate that, because there is such a major difference. And I get asked that a lot, like what, when again, with clients and whatnot, that comes up. And sensuality and sexuality are very different from one another. And I really do believe that in order to feel more confident in the sexuality space, we start with sensuality, right? And so we start with those more self-pleasure practices, or more, essentially putting on body lotion into your body, like to feel into your skin. I like to work a lot with erotic blueprints. So helping people, so many of my women come back as a sensual blueprint, right? And so what does that mean? So being able to walk them through that, going through that, and to see those light bulb moments. But for so many women, and tell me if you experience this, like, I think there's a certain type of women that will come to like step up to do this type of work, definitely. And then there's so many women that they'll be listening to a podcast like this, right? And it's like, hell to the no, like, this is not for me. This is so foreign. Like, there's no way possible that I could even access something like this, like to even put on lingerie or to touch myself or look at myself naked in the mirror, right? There's so many of us out there that is just not available. So I think with your approach, like taking more of the somatic side to it and the more sensual side of it, as you said, you're helping them break down those barriers, because so much of it is rooted in shame and limiting beliefs and things that have been placed on us or that we've adapted over time. And I liked that you use the words rewiring, because it's rewiring and reprocessing to think and believe differently, which it's hard, right? And like I said, it's a special type of person. I have so much respect for people that like step up to do this work, because it's not easy. You think of, oh, I'm going to do sex coaching, I'm going to do sensual empowerment coaching, right? Like that sounds fun, that sounds exciting, but it's like, no, there's a lot of shit that you have to like break through first to be able to get to that other side.
Yeah. And our historical experiences, like not being comfortable talking about it. Some of the women that I see, this is well, and men, this is the first time that they've like really been able to talk to somebody about sex. And because of the stories that we've got, it's like, oh, this is shameful. This isn't talked about in community. But there's so much to be gained, because kind of like you're pointing to, it's not just about sex. Like this is a huge part of who we are. Sensuality too is a huge part of how we show up, how we experience things. The act of sensually rubbing body lotion on, like that's an act of self-care. That's an act of self-love. That's an act of softness, gentleness. And when you bring that sensibility out into the world, you're going to interact completely differently with your boss, your coworkers, your kids, the barista, you you get to not only have this like impact for yourself, but it changes your relationships.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fully believe that. And a mentor of mine usually says like a well fucked woman, right? Like we should just walk through the world differently. And I think I think that is in alignment here with what you're saying. Like a woman that is into her personal power, her sexual power, her sensual power, like she's tapped into that deep feminine side of herself and feels comfortable there and knows how to access that and knows how to access it for good, not for manipulation or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, again, there is so much power, there's so much growth behind that. And I agree. I say this often too. It's like if your sex life is good, if your pleasure part of your life is good, everything else around you just starts to fall into place. And I truly believe that. And what else was I going to say? Oh, when I think of sensual, I think of connection, and then I think of specifically more so emotional connection as well, which is a conversation that I have so often with people when I'm working with couples. It's like if that disconnect is happening outside of the bedroom, how, if I'm not feeling connected to you in the day-to-day, and then here you are coming to initiate sex, it's like how can I even be thinking about that? How can I even drop into that space when I really don't even like you that much right now, and I think this type of work too allows women, when you can access the side of you, then you're strengthening like that throat chakra too, to be able to then voice what you need and voice your desires to a partner.
Yeah, the way that your sexuality and sensuality is connected to confidence, the ability to speak up, the ability to like know yourself, know your pleasure is huge. And then to be able to have a different relationship to sex and pleasure, where it's not just like, okay, now we come together and have sex, but it's like, I'm invested in learning what turns you on. You're invested in learning what turns me on. And I'm an advocate for what turns me on and for what feels good. And we're going to interact and we're going to play together and experiment. That goes into every aspect of your life. That's not just found in the bedroom. But I do think that there's an important distinction between sensuality and sexuality. And I think why I more heavily rely on the term sensuality is that when we think of sex, we have a lot of predefined notions about what sex is, what it should look like, what it should feel like, what happens during sex, and it all comes down to there is no predefined script for sex. There is no predefined outcome for sex. It's not always ending in an orgasm, And what psychedelics can afford and offer is that experience of play. Mm-hmm. Is that experience of like what happens, even in a non-psychedelic state, like you mentioned, eye gazing with your partner. When you do that for an hour, you go into an altered state of consciousness, and your body can experience different kinds of arousal that if you just go towards sex every time, and sex is this very narrow definition for you, you're missing out on this whole spectrum of experience. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to play with the sensuality of it, to be able to play with your senses, to engage them in different ways, to be able to kind of redefine what sex is, what it means, what it looks like, what it feels like, it's so powerful.
Yeah. And I think too, there's so much importance behind women being able to turn themselves on. I think so often, like that's the narrative. That's what we're taught is like it's the man, right? Like the man is meant to, it's on them. They should know what we like. They should know what we're into, all that. And one, I think, and working more with men in these past 2 years, it's like we put so much pressure on men to be around performance and specifically pressure around like what their penis should be doing, essentially. And, to be able to then moving more into like desire, mainly women fall into this category of responsive desire, where men are mostly that spontaneous desire. So for a woman that is in her sensual power and knows how to turn herself on, that can help just, again, make that process of sex or intimacy, whatever, more connected. And again, less pressure on, okay, here I am, turn me on, to saying to her partner. It's like, no, as you said, agency and like autonomy, like, no, I know what's good for me, and I can do these sensual practices beforehand. And I think for women, like I can do the sensual practice and then I'm going to initiate sex with you. I'm not waiting for you to come with me. That's another thing. I think, a lot of times we put the pressure on men to be initiating the sex, and generally, heterosexual relationships I'm speaking to primarily here, it is the man that's initiating sex, right? Because generally they want the sex all the time and we're just like, nah, we're good. Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah, I'm the complete opposite. But there is, talking about spontaneous desire and responsive desire, which is a typically gendered experience. Again, it's all about self-empowerment, to empower yourself to want, if you're in a state of like, oh, I really desire to initiate sex, great. There's nothing around that because you're desiring it to have that experience. So that's so empowering and so healing in relationships, especially to change some of these dynamics that are just culturally bred into us, culturally conditioned into us because of the narratives that we have, the relationships we see on TV, really, which is like how we get so much of our information. Almost the only access we have to like learning about sex is through like movies, pornography. Like these are all constructed relationships by people who, largely don't know this side of things, our side of things, like the side of things that you get when you really study sexual dynamics, sexual relationships, the body and pleasure. It's a complete, we as sex educators would create a completely different narrative and a completely different model for how people can relate.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I love that. Yeah, I've been podcasting now for 4 years. Actually, this month is 4 years. And just having people like you on the show too, because with us doing this type of work, like we are able to show other people what is actually available, because you don't know what you don't know. And yeah, I hosted a women's retreat back in October, and it's like these women leaving that experience, they're like, I can't unknow now what I've learned, in this weekend here. I'm like, you're right. Like that. So now it's your job, right? You go out there, you continue to do these things like that we learned and that you were able to embrace and embody and everything this weekend. But as we're getting to the end here, I want to ask, so just to make this conversation relatable for people that, to look into doing something like somatic work or sex coaching or sensuality coaching, anything like that, what would you say in your experience with clients, when you say that you've helped them break through shame and rewire beliefs, what are some common things that you've seen clients like overcome in your sessions?
I love this question because almost daily I get updates from my clients of like, I just felt this breakthrough, I just had this experience. And it's funny because we start with sex because I'm a sensual empowerment coach. So like we go in, we start with sex, but some of the most common transformations are around showing up differently. So I have clients who, are working through infidelity in their relationship, but one of their main, it was like clearing that was easy. There's stuff underlying what's going on, which is like, I've always felt like I could never show up fully as myself. I've always been subservient to other people. And I did that in my relationship by not showing up the way I wanted to during that infidelity experience. And now that's translating into work. And so the work that we're really doing is like opening up your voice, reconnecting you to your power so that you can step into the world and be the person who you want to be. And I think that's the biggest transformation is the work that we do will help you have more pleasure. It'll help you open up. It'll help you remove some of those blocks and limitations and limiting beliefs.
Mhm.
But what you're really doing in this work is stepping into your identity, that kind of higher self that you hold, that vision of yourself that is everything that you are when you don't have the cultural messaging diminishing you, dulling your shine, and just like being able to open up to those expanded possibilities that you can access when those blocks go away. You're like, who am I now? Who can I step into? And that's the biggest transformation that I see with my clients.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that is wonderful. Like I said, the world needs people like you, definitely, and to have this as an option for for people to be able to do, certainly, because as we already said, women that do this work and uncover this and choose to believe something different and choose to feel something different about themselves, like that's fucking power, right? Like that's how we change the world, is when people feel more truly and authentically into themselves. And that's
Yeah. And I love that you're using the word choice, because it is a choice.
Mhm.
And to believe what society's already pre-scripted for you is also a choice.
Mhm.
It's not a very empowering choice, but it is a decision that you can make without much effort.
Yeah.
And so creating that decision to just say, like, fuck it, let me experiment, let me just play, let me just see what could come of this, doing this work.
Mhm.
And you know, so far we're batting 10 for 10. I don't know what the term is. Like batting 100. You know, there's no real sorry, my mind's going toward like the myths that we have around psychedelics, where we feel like they're scary and they're like gonna change our lives, and maybe we're scared of that. It's like this work can feel intimidating and scary because changing your life is a big deal.
Yeah.
But the upside of it is that limitless possibility of getting to be who you want, to feel what you want, and to do what you want.
Mhm. Yeah. Incredible. Well, how can people find you if they're interested in hearing more from you, working with you? Where's your preferred contact?
Yeah, so if you go to my website, jessicaalfaqih.com, and you can check the spelling on on the show notes. If you go to my website, I have a number of ways to get access to free audio downloads.
Awesome.
Actually, let me do this. I'll create a little link for you. So it'll be jessicaalfaqih.com/Rachel-Main. And I will put a compilation of these guided visualizations that help simulate psychedelic experience and open yourself up to more pleasure and possibility.
Thank you. Yeah, I will be interested in watching them myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And then are you on any social platforms, Instagram or TikTok or anything like that?
So I'm on Instagram at Jessica_Al-Faqih.
Perfect. Yeah, and we'll make sure to link all of that in the show notes. Thank you again for coming on the show today. This was such a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I really hope that people enjoy this, and hopefully it feels a little less scary to consider doing this type of work. But I just appreciate that you all offer the alternative to psychedelics if people weren't fully into that.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you loved it, be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if you really fucking loved it, make sure to tag me on social media at @TheRachelMain. I'll see you next week.